this video because I wanted to share some thoughts I had on skepticism and critical thinking, especially in fields that are sort of like emerging or maybe new age or spiritual fields that aren't necessarily peer reviewed because there really aren't a body of critical peers, right? And last night I was watching some sort of kind of fringe interviews. Like I'll go on Dr. Dispenza's website and I'll look at student testimonials, which I find to be really inspiring. And then I watched some sort of recommended videos. One of them was Dr. Wayne Dyer, who has written many books on sort of spirituality and kind of like manifesting and creating the life that you want. And in one of the interviews I watched with him, he had talked about seeing like a spiritual surgeon, like a spiritual healer, whose name was John of God. He's in Brazil. And at the time this was, I think the interview was recorded like in 2011, so it was, many years ago. And Oprah had talked about this healer. She had had him on her show. Several celebrities had talked about him. He was a huge personality, and of course he was one of those healers that were commodifying the healings, and he was claiming to channel spirits through it, and there were actually amazing healings that were occurring. And Dr. Wayne Dyer claimed that he had been healed from John of God. And so then I go to Google John of God. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, let me learn more about him. And turns out 2 years ago, many years after this interview was recorded, he was indicted for massive sexual abuse scandals. Like, it was like on the level of Brazil's own Me Too movement, and over 600 women had come out and accused him of sexual assault, and they actually had findings and evidence, and I think he's up to like 19 years in prison right now. It was like a huge scandal in Brazil. I was really disturbed last night after hearing what I heard about this John of God. It was just pretty horrible stories and allegations, and it just made me think about critical thinking, and again, like sort of approaching these charismatic leaders with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thought. And I actually did the same thing for Dr. Dispenza. So when I started doing this work, I Googled him and I looked to see what his critics had to say, and I actually looked for for lawsuits and for anything I could find. And the number one critique that I saw about Dr. Dispenza on the web that's the most prevalent was one regarding his affiliation with the Ramtha School of Enlightenment. The RSE is the acronym for that. And this is just my opinion based on the facts that I've been presented. But what I have seen online was that there have been several scandals, and there's been some remarks that she made that were particularly inflammatory. There's allegations that there's a pyramid scheme involved, and he was in fact a student of that school. But for me personally, that doesn't deter me, because he has broken off ties with RSE many years ago. And for the skeptics out there, and for my own screening of Dr. Dispenza and his work, I don't think he's a snake oil salesman. I think that he teaches a process that is real and that is valid. Breaking the habit of being yourself is founded on solid neuroscience and is founded on some pretty amazing principles of actually rewiring your brain, which has, been known for decades that the brain is neuroplastic, and that you can actually prune and reshape the way you think and your neural networks. So I really think that a lot of the foundations of what he teaches in changing bad personality habits into new one, and in the benefits of meditation, I think those are solid. They're founded in good solid science and good principles. And personally, in my practice, I've actually felt the benefits of implementing the meditations and the positive thinking and the gratitude. So I wholeheartedly support Dr. Dispenza's methods. While he may have ties with the RSE and that it has been questionable in itself, I think that the leader is not on the same level of Dr. Dispenza. And I don't think it's fair to necessarily condemn another person with their own teachings of enlightenment because they were affiliated or had been taught by another person who in turn had been indicted or has been accused of things that aren't the best character decision. And I think a great example of that is if you look at at the church. And you look at the Christian church, and I think many great religions, the religion itself is truth, and it's a good teaching, and it can be something that can be used for healing and goodness. But in every movement, and you see this in the Christian church, you see it in mosques, you see it in really with monks, with really any great spiritual practice, humans are just vessels of a spiritual truth. So you're going to see humans sometimes make mistakes, and other times you're going to see humans that are embroiled in, huge scandals. And I think to write off the entire movement because a human is flawed, or a human, gained too much fame and they became corrupt from all the fame and the money that you get when you get these followers. I mean, we're all just humans, we're all like human vessels of truth. But I think to write off the entire movement is not fair, and I think it can actually be limited, and you can be limiting yourself. So I guess the reason I recorded this video is I read some pretty disturbing accounts of one of these highly regarded spiritual leaders in Brazil, and I think it is important to approach these practices with a healthy dose of skepticism, but to also approach it with an open mind, and to be open to the truths that we can find with these spiritual teachings, and always to put the teaching and the lesson first beyond any one charismatic leader, right? We don't want to become a cult, and I think you see it in many different movements. You can kind of see this cult-like following of a persona, of a charismatic personality, and I think it's important to always remember the truth, the teaching, rather than the person or the personality. So I really kind of looked through a lot of forums about Dr. Dispenza, and my personal decision is to continue with work because personally it's made me feel great, and I believe that he's somebody that is doing it in good faith and that's sincere. And I've watched hundreds of the testimonials and they seem to be sincere, and I've actually followed up with certain people who've had testimonials personally, and they are real people. They are sincere about what they've experienced. So I believe that there is sincerity behind Dr. Dispenza's movement, of the spiritual movements out there. I think this is one of the better ones, and I think it's accessible at, really any financial entry point that you want. I don't believe that you have to dump thousands of dollars. I think there can be benefit for going to the workshops and the retreats, but I also think that you can reap the benefits by just doing the practice by reading a book. Go to the library. If you don't want to pay for the book, go to the library and get the book. If you don't want to pay for the meditation, they're on YouTube. So I really think there is an access point for all levels of income. And for skeptics out there and people who are justifiably questioning this work, I suggest that you go into one of these accessible, like the library I just mentioned, or YouTube online, and just try it out for yourself and see how it makes you feel. Again, in this vlog and documenting my process, I want to be as honest and holistic as possible. And so I kind of felt compelled to share this video because it really, reading last night and thinking really kind of challenged my beliefs so far, and it really made me question where I am in this work and my own opinion on Dr. Dispenza and his teachings, and kind of where I stand with it. And above all things, I really want this to almost be like a scientific record. I want it to be a transparent, candid record of my personal journey as I try this work. And if I come across anything amazing, like I have, it's been amazing to me and pretty groundbreaking, I'm going to share it. And if I come across any questionable pitfalls or any red flags, I'm also going to share that. I want this to kind of serve as a record, because when I started doing the work, I saw these before and after testimonials, but I didn't really see anything that was kind of tracking the progress. And you don't see a lot of kind of before record, like, oh, here's my x-rays before the healing, here's after. Though one thing that does give me a lot of assurance is there's before pictures of a condition, maybe eczema or a condition that they heal, there's after pictures. So there is some like tangible documentation. And another great thing is Dr. Dispenza's work is actually starting to become published by peer-reviewed researchers. And I think part of the reason it's so sparse is because he doesn't really have any peers. There's not a lot of people in the scientific community that are doing the kind of work that he does. However, universities are starting to pick up on him, and he had, I believe, earlier this year, a peer-reviewed article come out on the benefits of meditation. And so there is tangible evidence behind the work that Dr. Dispenza is doing. I don't think it's just snake oil salesman. I think it is founded incredible work, and I hope that this vlog can serve as sort of another record, a tangible record, that if something amazing does happen in my life, that there's sort of a before, and there's a process, and there's a real record of my own experience with the work. So I'd love to hear if you have any questions or commentary, even skepticism or critiques, or your own thought on the entire process. I'd love to hear your opinion on it, as always. And thank you for participating in these videos. Thank you for following. I really appreciate the people that comment and engage in the process, because this is a process for me just as much as it is for other students. So anyway, hope you guys have a blessed day.